Here we go. I'm going to officially record the call. I think maybe you see that at home, maybe not. Okay, you could give me a thumbs up if you do see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you go to MakeCode Arcade. Okay, so arcade.makecode, whoops, I spelled it wrong. Arcade.makecode.com. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that and throw it in the chat as I am so good at. Oh, that's just going to a beer. Hold on. Going to everyone. Arcade.makecode.com. Okay, so now if I'm at arcade.makecode.com, what you're going to see is that this is our dashboard. I'm going to start right at the top with a new project. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we are going to learn about variables. Okay, we are going to create a simple game, very simple game. We are just going to have MakeCode Arcade count the number of times that the A button is pressed. Okay, so we're going to do that. So we're going to give the project a name. So I'm going to call this something simple. Anybody have a name? Button counter. Okay, button counter. Okay, I have named this with a lowercase b, uppercase C, no spaces. Does anybody remember what that's called? That naming convention. So a lot of times when you're programming, you name things with a lowercase letter and then an uppercase letter, no space. That is called camel case, right? So if I called this button counting game, my second G would be uppercase as well. And it's very common in, products. So can you think of anything that you might own that might be named using camel case? Ah, Austin, thank you. I'm good at giving hints, right? An iPhone is camel case. eBay, PayPal, maybe things that you don't use, but your parents definitely do. Okay, so camel case, I'm going to call this button counting game. You could call it whatever you want. And I'm going to say create. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to set up something that's going to hold how many times this A button is pressed. And that is a variable. Okay, so let me tell you about variables. A variable is simply a container that holds information. And it can be, that information can be a number, it can be text, it can be a sprite, right? An image. It can also be something called an array. Okay, so in MakeCode, we're going to start with our simplest kind of variable. It's going to be a number. Matthew. It is stressed. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, just move over one. So log off of that one and move over one. And if in the end you could wipe both computers, that would be great. Okay, so we're going to start with a variable. So if you look at MakeCode, on the left-hand side, you're going to see towards the bottom of all of the categories is something that's called variable. It is red. So you're going to click on that variable drawer, and you're going to see that you have the opportunity to make a variable. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click make a variable, and then I'm going to give this variable a name. Okay, so usually when you're creating names for things, what you want to do is you want to create it, you want to be the master of the obvious. You want to create these names so that you know what they are later on. Or if somebody is working with you, they know what it is later on. So I'm going to call this one count a button. Okay, and I did it with a lowercase letter and then two uppercase letters. What is that called again? Yell it out if you know. It is called camel case. Okay, so I'm going to say okay. So when I make a variable, what you see is like, ta-da! In that variables drawer, all of a sudden, you have an argument. Okay, so that's the one that looks like a pill. It's got roundy kind of edges. If you did the Game Maker guide, you know that that's things with funny edges are called arguments. And then, oh, I spelled it wrong. Okay, then you'll also see that there's something that says set count A button and something that says a block that says change the count A button. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the one that says set count A button, and we're going to pull it out and put it in on start. Now I misspelled it, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say rename variable, and I'm just going to change that from button to button. Okay, and I'm going to say okay. So now what's happening is that when we start this game, we have created a variable and we've set it to what is it going to be? What's the value of it? The value is, it is 0, Yash, thanks. Okay, so that's what we've done so far. What I like to do too is I like to just double check to make sure that it actually works. So we've also seen when we say set sprite, so the sprite is also a variable. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull a set sprite, set my sprite, and I'm going to put that under count a button. And then I'm going to choose a sprite. Yes. Okay, I'm going to choose a sprite to place there. So you can make something. You can also use something from the gallery. I'm going to change it up a bit. I usually like this one right here. But I'm going to say, oh, I like this one with the bunches, the hair. Is it on start video? Yep, on start. Okay, so I'm going to say on start, I have a variable or a container called count a button. It's nothing because I haven't pressed the A button yet. And then set my sprite. So now I have a sprite in the middle. Okay. Now what I want my sprite to do is I want to just kind of double check. I'm not always confident that I set that variable and it's what I expect it to be. So I'm going to go back to sprites and I'm going to scroll down to the effects section. And some of you have used some of the sprite effects. There's like spray effect, confetti effect, destroy the sprite. What we want is we want our sprite to say something. So I'm going to have the sprite for now. I'm going to pull out my sprite say, and the sprite is going to say smiley face. Okay. But I want to check that it's actually going to say 0. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to variables and I'm going to say count a button. So that argument, and I'm going to put that where the smiley face is. So if you can see my screen, okay, my sprite say count a button. Okay, so now what should happen is my sprite is saying 0, right? That's what we expect. The sprite is going to say 0 because it's saying count a button. Now, what I want to do is I want to make the game recognize an event. Okay, so you've done this before. If you played somebody else's game, right? You probably press the A button. Where would you find that block? Where would you find the block that is looking for or listening for, waiting for the A to be pressed? Where might you find that? Ryan, Yash. In controller, okay? So if we go to controller and we look for on a button pressed, we can drag that out. We'll drag that out. And what this is something called an event listener. When you pull this into your workspace, what you're saying to the computer is listen or wait for the A button to be pressed. And when it's pressed, do the code that's inside, okay? So when the A button is pressed, what do we want to do? We want to count. We want to change count A to be more +1. So let's go to variables. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this. This is bad, but we're going to say pull, change my sprite. Now, do we want to change my sprite? No, because my sprite is the image. What we want to do is we want to change. So if you pull the down arrow, we want to change count a button by 1. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press the A button. I'm pressing the A button. Nothing is happening. Why is that? or it doesn't seem like anything is happening. Let's actually do this. What do you think, Brian?
You have to have your shark say, or starting with the shark, you have to have your sprite say it again.
Okay, we have to have the sprite say it again. So let's actually, this my sprite say in on start, let's drag that over to on A button pressed, okay? So now I have 2 blocks of code in here. On start, set my count A to 0, set my sprite to the person with bunches. And then when the A button is pressed, I want to change count A to 1. I mean, change count A by 1. And then I want my sprite to tell me how many times I've clicked the A button. Oh my goodness, all the A's starting up. Okay. Now you can also, like we drag this count A button, you can duplicate it. So right click, duplicate. I do like seeing what my variable starts at just to make sure that I did it right. Okay, so you could be on start and say count button to 0, have your sprite say it just to make sure it resets, and then start pressing the A and have the sprite say it again. Okay, so that is our very simple game. We just made a game that counts how many times the A button is pressed. Okay, what if you wanted to count how many times the B button was pressed and you were having a versus, A versus B? What might you do? What might you do? So that is the challenge for right now. Oh, Yash is, okay, no, Yash, tell us. Okay, so Yash is saying if I want to count the B button pressed, you would make another variable and kind of do the same thing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let you do that. Okay, give you some time to do that. And then we're going to have you test it out. So I'm going to stop share. Maybe I'm going to stop record. Stop recording. Pause recording. Oh, pause recording. Oh, warning. But let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. If you are working on the simple counting game, anything that has to do with a variable, you want to come back to me. Okay. Now I should have done this, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my counting game. I'm going to say on B pressed count. I need some other variables. You know what? I'm not going to do it right now. I was too engaged with you all. So one thing that you want to do with your code, okay, let's go ahead and right click on start. One of the options under there is add comment, okay? It's a really good practice to add comments to your code so that you know in a year or whatever, next week, you know what you are intending to do, or your collaborators, okay, people that you're writing code with, building games with, know what you meant to do here. Like this is what totally happened this month. We were working, we were having school, doing school, and we were doing great. And then the network went down, right? So then we were home, we were on break. We come back from break. People forgot what was going on, forgot what they were working on, okay? When you write a comment, it's too bad you can't comment your life, but when you write a comment, that helps you do that. So I'm going to say this block in my comment, this block sets all the variables for the button counting game. Now this looks kind of small, but you can click on this whoopee, click, hold, and drag, and that will resize the comment. And then you can use this little down arrow to hide it away. So now you'll see that that block of code has a little conversation button there that indicates that there's a comment. Now you can comment any block. Okay, so right click, add comment. Okay, this is the variable for counting A presses. Okay, and then so that is a good idea. Now the other thing, okay, For now, if you want to take this home and work on it, because I will not see you until Monday. If you want to wait till Monday, that's fine too. But if you want to work on this at home, okay, remember that you're going to share, well, two ways. Use that share button at the top left. You're going to publish the project. You're going to copy the code that MakeCode generates for you. That's our 3-minute warning. Okay. And then you are going to email this to yourself. Okay. That's one way that you can save it. The other way that you can save it is if you look down at the bottom, there is going to be a file name and it looks like a floppy disk at the bottom, like at the bottom of your category drawers. It is called whatever you named your project initially. If you click the save button, it will automatically save your project as a PNG file, which is a graphics file. It's kind of weird, but that's what it does. Okay. And you'll have the option to put it, save it where you want. So that now it looks like it's showing up in the top right corner. Okay. I would save it into your downloads and then put it in, save it up to your Google Drive. But for right now, I think that this one is easier. The share is a little bit easier just to have that URL. Okay, so go ahead and get to your exit ticket. The exit ticket is in your Google Classroom. I will share that in the chat. Okay, there will be, I started it, there will be a place for you to submit this inside of, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording too. Okay, there's gonna be a quest for you to share this. Let me stop